What's up, YouTube? A couple months ago I made a video showing how I put brighter headlight bulbs in my Mk4 Jetta's headlight housings. At the time I thought it was great. I thought, oh yeah, they're a little brighter, they're a little better, but in hindsight and since then I've realized they're actually still pretty crappy. So don't put brighter bulbs in reflector housings. It doesn't work very well. So that's what I'm going to prove today. I'm going to do a HID projector retrofit on here. So yeah, let's get into it. There's a lot to cover. To be clear, I am not condemning these bulbs. They are very great quality. They work fantastic. The only problem is that reflector housings completely waste all of the amazing brightness of LED bulbs. So it's just wasted. The beam pattern's not that great, to be perfectly honest. I'll show a before and after video so you can see what I mean, but it's just wasted. It's $80 down the drain. It really didn't make a huge difference. And of course, I have to acknowledge, this is one of the cheapest routes to go. You can spend far more money on this, like with a Morimoto setup. You can get LED projectors, very, very nice, but I'm on a budget. I can't afford a $500 set of projector retrofits. This is the setup I'm showing you. This is budget. This is, as far as I can tell, a good value. It's fairly well made. It's not fancy by any means, but it'll do the job. We'll see. I haven't tested it out yet, but we'll see. I think it's good. The looks are good. So this is actually metal. You can't really tell in the photos. In the photos, it kind of looks like it's plastic, but this is actually metal. This nut is metal, so that's a good sign. I think the lens is glass as well, so it's fairly well made. So here's a slightly simplified layout of everything you need and how it all connects. Obviously, of course, you have your projectors here and here. These are the bulbs. These are just covers on the bulb. You can kind of see it inside there, but these are the bulbs right here. Inside the projector, you have a solenoid. It makes this shutter go down. My finger's kind of in the way, but it makes this shutter go down. And that's what gets your high beams. So that would be the high beam solenoid. High beam solenoid is connected to your wiring harness. This wiring harness connects to the stock H4 headlight connector on one end, and then you have this high beam solenoid wire here, and so that connects that wire. And then on the other end, you have a cable that goes to the ballast. So power comes in from H4 connector, does magic in here, get high beam signal out there when you want to make your high beams go, and then power goes out here to the ballast, and then the ballast connects to the bulb, and that powers the bulb. And this is kind of a mess in here. There's two sets of cables. For this setup, you only need the set of cables in here with these two individual connectors. This big, like 9003 connector, you can just cut that off. It has like these spade connectors on the other end inside where the bulb is. So I'm gonna cut this connector off, just use this one. Same over here, and yep, that's basically it. I'll leave links to all this stuff in the description. Full disclosure, I am not sponsored by any of this, so anything I say in the video is completely my own opinions, and I'm not obligated to say it, so you can trust that it is honest. Now, just to make sure everything works, I'm going to plug it in. It's going to be kind of janky, but I'm going to plug it in to the stock harness here just to make sure everything works, make sure the high beams work, make sure the harnesses work, make sure they don't get too hot or something like that. But yeah, let me do that right now. So here's what I meant by cutting off this connector. You don't need this part. That's from the other bulb, but you only need the connector with these two individual ports, connectors, whatever you want to call it. And then there's two holes left here. That'll come in handy later, I think. Okay, that was harder than you'd think to mount this bulb. This little bracket here, you have to mount that in order for the bulb to be held in. You can see when the projector comes out of the box, there's nothing on the end. The bracket is held on by 3 screws. You can see the holes there. It comes in this little bag of brackets and stuff. Don't throw that out, it's important. So you have to screw the bracket on, and then you put the bulb in. This spring thing, you have to, I mean, it's pretty intuitive, I guess. You put it through the holes, push it down, it kind of holds it in place like that. It slides into these slots. Also, this is a demonstration of you get what you pay for. These slots were not really fully drilled out, so the spring wasn't in place all the way, so I had to drill them out a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I have these wired up kind of jankily. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I would say they work. Okay, so ignore the fact that this one's not working. I was messing with this connector. You'll see why in a little while. It's a nice little trick I figured out, but I was messing with that, so don't mind that this one isn't working. This one's working, and that's important. Now let's try the high beams. Oh, yeah, that works. I'm gonna time lapse removing these headlights on the bumper because it's boring, and there's plenty of other videos showing how to do that, so you don't need to see that. Time lapse it, here we go. So as you can see, I have the headlights out, and you'll also notice that this bumper is not completely off. It's just low enough for me to get these two screws on each of the headlights. I found this saves a lot of time and effort because you don't have to disconnect these wires on the side, and there's screws on the bottom that you don't have to get at if you do this. So this saves a lot of time and hassle. Same goes for this, just kind of set it up here. You don't have to screw around with all of that pain. So little trick I've learned. So I have the headlight housing in here at the lowest temperature that the oven goes to, which is apparently 170 degrees. I think that's pretty standard, but it's in there at the lowest temperature. It's been in there a few minutes, so I'm going to take it out. You don't want to melt this thing, obviously, just heat it up to soften the adhesive. And this is one of the most tedious parts. Find a spot where it's kind of already gapped. Stick your screwdriver in there, pry carefully. Go. I also forgot to mention there's these little metal clips that you need to take off. They hold on the lens mechanically versus adhesively, so you gotta take those off too. Actually, you want to take those metal clips off before you put it in the oven. Now you want to scrape off as much of this silicone as you can. Now, to be perfectly honest, the more of this you get off, the better, but it does not have to be surgery ready. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's like some residue of silicone sealant left, but the butyl does a pretty good job of sealing up, even if it's not sterile clean, so that should be good. Now you're gonna need some pliers to take this out. Like so. Okay, now I need to prep the projector for installation. So you wanna put the shroud on. This takes 4 screws, right here, 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 and here. Unfortunately, this does not come with these screws to hold the shroud on, so you'll have to source those on your own. But once you get this shroud on, I'll take this nut off of here, and then this silicone washer, I believe, goes on just like this. And then now this is the tricky part. Your high beam solenoid has to get from this side to this side somehow. I think I have seen some people use the city light hole right here. Unfortunately, this connector is just too big by a little bit to fit through here, so you'd have to either cut this off or remove the pins from the connector in order to fit it through that hole. So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do instead, I'm going to grind a little notch in the bottom of here, and so the wire kind of comes through like that. This plate right here, by the way, goes like this. Okay, and as you can see, I have cut a notch right here, and that should allow that wire to pass through it. You'll see. So to line this up properly in the housing, you want to find the side with a solenoid and shutter on it, and that side needs to face down. Otherwise, your beam pattern will be upside down. Now, what I do, put wire in through there, and then I'll make this clear in a second. Put that on there, put this in place, and then stick this through here. Also, maybe you can't see it on camera, but there's a slot on top of these threads, and that lines up with a tab on this H4 bracket, and so that helps you get it aligned vertically to some degree. And this nut goes on. I'm going to use my Knipex pliers to get this fully tight. And now put this little bracket on. I find it helps if you put one screw in before you put this bracket on, and then you can kind of set it on there and it keeps it nice and straight. Okay, and then in goes the bulb. This would be this insulator, I guess, lines up with the slot in the bottom. And this pins go in these holes just a little bit, down and over like so. Now we have the projector in. Ta-da! Now for wiring, this is one of the more tedious parts in my opinion. You just have to cram everything in there really. And then to make sure this doesn't come apart, I'm going to put a little bit of Gorilla Tape on it. Electrical tape would probably be better, but I couldn't find any electrical tape, so we're using Gorilla Tape. Okay, and then this wire needs to go through this grommet. This grommet sits in this hole on the cover. All of this goes in, and then this part needs to go through here, so I'll show you how to do that. First, you want to pry on these clips on the side to take that little bit off, and then you can see on the inside there's these holes, and you want to push in here and pry to the inside. Pull these out, and then you have to make these holes a little bit bigger to be able to fit these through. So you can see these little tabs on the inside. Those are what we were prying on in order to get these terminals out. You're going to need to pry those back out in order for them to click into this connector here. And then if you're looking at the connector like this with these tabs on top, red goes on the right, black goes on the left. And then again, you want these clippy tabs on the inside, pointing towards the inside, I guess. Push it until you feel a click, and you should be good to go. Now, as you can see, this insulation is kind of limiting how far this can come out, so we're going to have to carefully strip that back. Just jam these in here somewhat elegantly. Something like that should work. I almost forgot you have to have this connector off in order to fit it through the hole. It's like that. Okay, and now we need to mount the ballast. I recommend mounting it to this cover. It actually works quite well. And you pretty much just want this on something like that. Funny enough, this tab right here lines up pretty much with the center of these numbers there. Drill some potholes. As with the shroud, there are no screws provided for the ballast, so you'll have to find your own for that, I guess. Just like so. So now I have them mounted on the car. The lenses are still off. The lenses are inside. I'll put those on in a second, but before I put those on, I want to make sure that the projector is actually clocked properly so that the beam cutoff is nice and level. So I am going to turn it on, shine against a flat surface, and make sure it's all nice and level. I would say that's good. Now, to be clear, they're level, but they still need to be aimed, and so I'm going to do that after I have the lenses on and have the bumper all put back together. That's the last thing I'll do, is I will aim them. But for now, they are level, they're clocked right. I think that's good. So now is the part where we need to put this butyl tape around the edge of the headlight in that little groove there. It seals the lens on, so we'll do that next. Now, to be clear, I am completely winging it here. I've never done this, so I have no idea what to expect. Alright, so we got the headlights in, they're all good to go, so now let's get the bumper on. So it's actually been about 3 weeks since I did that projector retrofit, and I really like the headlights. They're better in pretty much every single way. The cutoff line is really nice and sharp. The beam pattern is very consistent and smooth. Yeah, so that's very nice. And also, I feel like I'm not blinding oncoming drivers as much or as easily. So that's also an added benefit as well. However, I have had several difficulties, several challenges. The first problem was that the stock Jetta headlight adjusters are basically just garbage. They're okay most of the time, but they have this strange tendency to pop loose and then basically not do anything, and your headlights either point at the ground or go back and forth. So I ended up having to remove the lens on the driver's side headlight because both adjusters came loose while I was trying to adjust them. And so I ended up having to take the lens off and try and reattach them. I got them reattached. I actually glued the vertical adjustment. I glued that one back in place so that it doesn't come loose ever again. The passenger side is okay for now, but I don't want to mess with it too much and cause it to come loose and have to take it all apart. So keep that in mind. You may end up having to disassemble the headlights after you've already put them together, and then you go and try to adjust them. So it doesn't really matter what projector retrofit kit you buy. If you decide to do this, you may or may not run into that. However, I did experience a problem that was in fact the fault of the Projector Retrofit kit's manufacturing, and it is a case of you get what you pay for. Basically, the problem is that the bulbs and the bulb mounting system is just not made that precisely. I mean, it's a $140 made in China projector, so you know, what do you expect? But the hot spots, as a result of the bulb mounting system being pretty sloppy, I'll just put it that way, the hot spots were kind of all over the place. On the passenger side, the hot spot was something like 6 inches above the cutoff line, and on the driver's side, the hot spot was about that far below the cutoff line. So, you know, the high beams were pretty inconsistent, and on the low beam, the ground is very bright on the driver's side, not as bright on the passenger side. So it was just, you know, I wasn't blinding drivers necessarily, but I couldn't see very well on my own, or at least I couldn't see as well as the headlights are meant to work, if that makes sense. So I had to actually find a way to adjust the position of those bulbs to move the hot spots around. When you move the bulb up, the hot spot goes up, and when you move the bulb down, the hot spot goes down. What I did actually is I used those 3 little screws that hold the bracket on. I'll maybe show a picture of that or something. I use those 3 little screws to basically just shim the bulb up or down, and that seems to work pretty well for me. You know, you may end up having your hot spots all over the place, you may not. I can't say for certain, but you know, something to watch out for. Okay, and then here is a before and after video, I suppose you could say, of the stock headlights with LED bulbs, and then the Projector Retrofit. It's pretty clear to me that the stock headlights, the reflector housing, it really scatters the light a lot, and so you have these weird hot spots all over the place, and the cutoff line really isn't that sharp, and the high beams, they're kind of these weird long streaks of light down your lane, and you can't really see too far to the sides of the road. And then with the projectors, you can see that the cutoff line is very, very nice and crisp. You can see that the beam pattern is very, very smooth and consistent, very bright all the way across. You can see, I'd say, further across the road, you know, back and forth. You know, you turn the high beam on and it's not just straight down the middle of your lane. You can see like all the way across the road, and then even like almost to the ditches. So that's very nice, very useful at night. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful and you think I deserve it, then give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.